All right, let's wade into controversy, shall we? And it is. It is controversy, and sometimes with these Stanley Cup Finals, you're going to find a contentious group of fans who don't like the ending, and we're there. Um, First round, the Calgary Flames had Vancouver. They lost Game One, 5-3, and as a Canuck fan, I was mildly optimistic that maybe the Canucks were going to get things done. I believe it had been since 1989. Uh, the Flames had not won a round. So as you know, Canuck fans felt pretty good about this. Um, Game two, they win 2-1. Vancouver won Game three 2-1. Game four went to Calgary 4-0, and that always felt like it was kind of a momentum shift. Game five, they won it 2-1. Game six, triple overtime. That was a great game. Let's be honest, it was a great game. Vancouver wins at 5-4 to force Game seven. Game seven, don't trade Marty Jalina. 3-2 win for the Flames, and the Flames eliminate Vancouver and move on to the second round. Now here's where things get weird, because I had never been a Flames fan, and yet after they knocked out Vancouver, I went, all right, I may not like them, but I don't like Detroit either, so I'm hoping that Calgary pulls this off and pulls off the upset. And they did. They won 2-1 in overtime in the first game. These were kind of a cardiac Flames, and this is when the Red Mile really got going. It was during this run that the Calgary Flames Red Mile had some infamous moments, and you guys know what I'm talking about if you're Flames fans or other fans around at that time. Nothing dangerous or particularly criminal, just the occasional underage girl flashing the camera and those pictures ending up online. Just nothing major. Game two, Detroit wins 5-2. Game three, Calgary wins 3-2. 4-2 loss for Calgary in game four. And then Mika Kiprusoff, who really became a legend as soon as he left San Jose. This guy's buried in San Jose behind Nabokov and Toskala. And guess what? He turns out to be a pretty darn good goaltender by himself. As did Toskala. Toskala took a lot of heat for his play in Toronto, but he really wasn't that bad. Back-to-back shutouts by Kiprusoff. 1-0 and then 1-0 in overtime. So that's 3 shutouts for him in the first 2 rounds. He made 20 saves, 31 saves, 38 saves in those shutouts. So he worked. The last 2 shutouts of the playoffs, he had 19 and 21 saves in those 2 games. So those were more defensive efforts, but honestly, Kiprusoff played fantastic. San Jose in the third round, they beat San Jose in overtime 4-3 in game 1. Game 2, they win 4-1. Game 3, they lost 3-0, and then they lost game 4 4-2. And when you see that, you're going, all right, so it's just gonna be a back and forth and go to 7. That's the assumption you have at that point. Game 5, they win 3-0, and then game 6, they win 3-1. The infamous finals. They beat Tampa 4-1 in game 1. They lost game 2 4-1. They won game 3 3-0. They lost game 4 1-0. They won game 5 in overtime 3-2. Game 6 is where the asterisk is. And every time I talk about the finals, and I talk about, or if I talk about how Canada hasn't won a cup in a long time, Flames fans jump on that. I will say that if the Flames, if the goal that they got had counted in game 6 and they had won the Stanley Cup, we would still be in a narrative about Canada only winning 1 Stanley Cup since 1993. That's where we'd be. Tampa did win that game in double overtime. That's the official score, and I'm not going to argue what is or isn't or what should or shouldn't have been. At the time, I remember the Canuck fan in the back of my brain, the 16-year-old kid that had watched 1989 went, Joel Otto. There was a part of me that did that said, well, Joel Otto kicked the puck in 1989, and so here we are. And then in game 7, Tampa won that one in regulation 2-1. I will say this. I know how hard it is to watch a team lose and for there to be a contentious final to that. And so I'm not trying to pick fun. Again, I said, it was the Canuck fan in me at the time. I don't feel that way now. It's a weird thing that having this channel has really changed my opinion on a lot of things, but it really has. And this was a Stanley Cup playoff that none of these guys are in the Hall of Fame as of yet. I do think Mika Kiprusoff has a chance at some point of getting in, but it's murky. It's probably, I'd give it a 50-50. Iginla will get in. Iginla led the scoring with 13 goals and 9 assists in 26 games. Conroy, 6 goals and 11 assists. Jelena, 8 goals and 7 assists. Nilsson, 4 goals and 7 assists. Donovan, 5 goals and 5 assists. Leopold had 10 assists. Robin Regeer, 2 goals and 7 assists. I was like, don't call him Richie, don't call him Richie. I was sure I was going to call him Richie, but I got Robin. I got it right first out of the gate. Niemanen, 4 goals and 4 assists. Chris Simon, 5 goals and 2 assists. Clark with 3 goals and 3 assists. Oleg Saprikin, 3 goals and 3 assists. Stefan Yell, 3 goals and 3 assists. Underrated bottom 6 forward in his time, Stefan Yell. Matthew Lombardi with a goal and 5 assists. Mika Kiprusoff, who really did everything he could to bring a Stanley Cup back to Calgary. 15 wins, 11 losses, 1.85 goals against, and a .928 save percentage. So not as stellar as the save percentages on some of the finalists that I've had up here in the last few days, but honestly, this was a great finals. And Coach Daryl Sutter got a lot of credit. He would get a lot of blame later on when the Flames couldn't replicate this. And eventually he moved on to LA, and they won a couple of Stanley Cups. And I think that's part of the reason why when they fired Gulutzan, I think there were some who figured that Sutter would fit back in Calgary. But Calgary decided to go in a different direction, and we'll see how that works for them. Anyways, your 2004 Stanley Cup finalist, and some Flame fans would argue should have been Stanley Cup champion, Calgary Flames. This was the last Stanley Cup finals before the lockout. So tomorrow when I do 2006, and people are like, where's 2005? That season doesn't exist. I already did a video on who I thought would have probably won the 2005 Stanley Cup based on lineups and changes and how things were going. But maybe I'll do something fun about the 2005 season that was lost. And maybe I can find a listing in one of these magazines here on all of the players that retired during that lockout season. All of the players who should have had that one last victory lap that were denied that by losing that entire season. But this is your 2004 Calgary Flames. Should they have been Stanley Cup champions? Probably. But they had Game 7. And this is the only argument that I would make is whatever the call was in Game 6, they could have come back and won Game 7. They gave it a really game effort. They did the best they could, and in the end, Tampa emerged as the champs. So, what history remembers is Dave Andreshuk holding the Stanley Cup aloft after decades of waiting for it. That was the feel-good image, and I understand why Flames fans don't see it that way. Thank you guys very much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. I'll talk to you again soon.